From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson. Before we start the show, I want to dedicate this entire show to one of the most special people that I have ever had the honor and pleasure of knowing in my life, my aunt Aide Ramirez of Miami, Florida. Aide Ramirez was born way back in February of 1922 in the Dominican Republic. And she grew up in an era where Santo Domingo was under a lot of tyranny and under a lot of oppression by its president at the time, Rafael Trujillo. Despite all that the country faced at that time, Aide Ramirez always kept her optimism and her great smile for all of her family and friends to see. She started her life as a teacher, and then as she got older, she decided to make a better life for herself here in the United States. So she packed up and left Santo Domingo and moved to Miami. One of the first things that my aunt Aide Ramirez did when she came to Miami, and this is where the sports angle comes in, was to take in a Dolphins game. She had no clue what was going on. Yet from that day, New Year's Day 1972, when she migrated here to the States from the Dominican, everyone who, the woman who we affectionately called Tia Aidita became the biggest Dolphin fan that you could ever know. Now, just because she became Americanized in that way does not mean that she forgot her roots. She was very old school. She only spoke Spanish, specifically to her family and whatever friends that she had, and there were quite a few. And she always watched Telemundo and Univision, and now the network known as Unimas. Her optimism, her sense of humor, her smile, her love for her family, her respect for her family, her fast-talking ways, her really, really sharp tongue at times, endeared everyone who came across her. Unfortunately, my aunt suffered from some health problems in the last, I would say, 25 years of her life. Most recently, she went through a very, very tough time with her health, to the point that we never saw the fast-talking and sharp-tongued ways that she had. Yet, even through all of the trials and tribulations of her poor health, she never, ever lost her smile. One other thing that I knew about her was that she loved to blow kisses at her family, specifically her grandsons and her great-grandson and her granddaughter. That photo that you see of Tia Aidita and I was taken this past January in Miami. I was there to attend my cousin Ivan's wedding. Unfortunately, that would be the last time that I would see my dear Tia Aidita. But at least I will have the memory of that moment and that evening and that last vacation that I ever had with her. Tia Aidita unfortunately passed away exactly 1 week ago yesterday. The funeral took place this past Thursday in Miami. She lived a long, great, supreme life. But as with everything in life on this earth, all good things must come to an end. So now that she's reached the end of her life, God can claim another angel for her, for his group of angels. With that said, I say, Tía Aidita, que descanse en paz, que Dios lo bendiga, bendiciones, and as always, keep smiling down on us, because we would love to see you once again. Tía. Bendiciones. With that said, I say once again, life has to go on. What was really hurtful about her passing was the way my mother was just beside herself in tears, and how her daughter, my cousin, her granddaughter, my oldest cousin, took this extremely hard, because she was always there. Good times, bad, good health, bad health. She was always there. Now, in body, she will not be there. But in spirit, did she ever really leave? She is going to be with us for good. When you think about it, her smile is all across our family. With my mother, with my oldest cousin, my second oldest cousin, and my 3 younger cousins. That smile is infectious. With that said, I say it's time to move on. As you could probably tell, my friend Hector Bosa could not be with us in studio, but he is with us on the phone. Go ahead, Hector.
Hello. I'm on. Am I on?
Yep, you're on live and in living color.
Oh, well, I don't know about the living color part. But I'm on, and in spirit I'm on.
Yes, you're definitely on in spirit.
But that was a nice speech there.
Thank you.
And like you said, life goes on. In spirit they're there, in body they're not. And we live on.
This is true. We live on
We
through
live
her.
on.
She lives on through each of us.
For those people that believe in God, yes, we believe in heaven on earth and heaven and hell and all that. Yes, we move on to heaven, and it's a whole new life where we become young and never get old and all that other good stuff. For everybody else, for every other religion, or for the atheists that are out there, to each his own. But for those people that believe in Christianity and so on, yes, we're up there. We're going to have a good time, and we'll see each other soon. But in all, did she ever get to actually get the rules of the football?
Just a teeny tiny bit.
She knew what a touchdown was. I'm sure she knew what a touchdown was.
Yes, she did. She knew what a touchdown was. She was a huge Dan Marino fan.
Who wasn't? It was a shame that man did not win a championship, though.
You could say that again.
There was too many good quarterbacks. I mean, you had Bradshaw, the guy from Dallas Cowboys.
Roger Staubach also.
Roger Staubach. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Phil Simms was not bad. Richard Todd was not bad. but you had some real good gunners. Joe Plunkett.
Jim Plunkett, yeah.
Jim Plunkett, yeah. Jim Plunkett. You really had some fantastic quarterbacks at that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And you had super teams.
Yeah.
Because you had the Jets had the Green Monster with the defense.
Yeah.
But Dallas was you can say a dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh was a dynasty.
Pittsburgh had the more modern day dynasty back in the 70s. But when you think about it, the first true dynasty that occurred in the NFL was probably the Packers. Before Vince Lombardi and during Vince Lombardi.
Right. But I'm saying for the 70s era.
Yeah. The Steelers were the first true dynasty in the 70s.
Because you had Dallas and Pittsburgh always challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And they had, I think, four Super Bowls apiece, I think, or is it 6?
I know Pittsburgh's won 4. Dallas has 5.
Okay.
San Francisco, I also think, has 5, and so does New England.
Yeah, but not in that era.
Not in that era, though.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. In that era, they accumulated at least 3.
Mm-hmm.
Not the one with, not the recent one, but 3 with Terry Bradshaw, 3 with Roger Staubach.
Actually, Bradshaw won the first 4 for them.
Okay. Then 4.
Yep, I know Staubach won 2, but it never came at the expense of the Steelers, though. It came at the expense of the Dolphins the first time, and then the Broncos.
Then when they had Emmitt Smith, they won 2, but that was before the big dynasty. Because after Pittsburgh, then you had Chicago Bears, but that was the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 70s, beginning of the 80s, it was still Pittsburgh. The main teams were Pittsburgh and Dallas.
Yeah.
They were normally in it, and once in a while the Raiders, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Oakland had a really fantastic quarterback. Eric Dickerson ran the hell out of the damn football.
Yeah.
For the Rams.
For the Rams and then the Colts.
Yes, exactly.
Probably the best running back to never win a championship.
Dickerson?
Yeah.
And even when they didn't have a quarterback, and you knew the man was coming. You knew he was coming.
Yeah.
You knew they were going to give the damn ball to him. They could not stop him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, thank goodness he had a decent front line that could actually give him. Not like the New York Giants.
Oh, brother.
But back then, it was harder. There was harder footballing and so on. Did some of those football players pay the price?
Oh, you got to say that again.
Because of injuries and steroids and whatever they had to do.
You know, it's funny that you mention that era of football because I was watching something on the web just recently, and they talked about the most violent game that was ever played in the NFL that the league tried to hide from the fans. It was
Which one was that?
Raiders versus Bears in 1984. This was at the old Soldier Field in Chicago.
Right.
There were hits that were made so violently in that game that supposedly one player went into the locker room and started urinating blood in the bathroom.
Damn.
And Jim McMahon, who was a third-year quarterback at that time, was really taking some of the most vicious shots from that Raiders defense.
Yeah.
He actually, I think he might have suffered the first of many concussions in that game, yet he never pulled out of that game except for maybe one play.
Yeah, because right now he's lost his mind.
Yeah.
He's lost his mind.
He's literally lost his mind so much that when I read an article about his early stages of dementia, he actually called his wife and tried to ask for directions on how to get back home. It's gotten to the point where he's taken so many shots after 17 years of playing in the league. He can't remember how to get back home after running an errand. He can't remember how to even put on clothes anymore.
Right.
And one guy actually came up to him and spoke about how it was so frustrating for him to try to drive his daughter to school, and he doesn't even know where the school is located.
Mm-hmm.
These guys played in an era where not only did they play every single down and every single snap, they refused to come out of the game. Some of them refused to come out of the game. Some of them were scared to come out of the game because if they revealed any of their injuries, they were afraid they were going to get pulled out.
Yeah, they were afraid to lose their job. I'll put it to you like this. Within the 90s to 2000, because of the guaranteed contracts that they have now, and with all the implications that they have with the concussions, checking for concussions now, getting better helmets, not getting hit as much. Not for nothing, the fans miss this. That's the problem. The fans miss the hard-hitting, smash-mouth type of football. And the thing is, they're not the ones that are playing it.
Yeah.
And also, it's funny because when the weather gets, let's say, 10 below, oh, they play great in the cold. Yeah. They're human beings.
Yep.
They're human, even though some teams play better in the cold because they're more used to it. Yeah. But when you're saying 10 below, 20 below, oh, they should go out there. They're men. This is what they get paid for. They're still human beings.
And some of these human beings don't like playing in the cold weather.
Exactly. And they don't play. But my point is that the fans out there, it's like, it's as boxing and UFC. You know what you're getting into. Some people say that if you know what you're getting into, why do you have so many rules? Why is there so much protection from humanity? Why is there?
You know why? Because they're trying to keep these guys from getting more and more injured than the guys who really took their shots in the past.
Because here's the thing: if any of the major leagues, whether it's basketball, football, any major sport that's out there, if they really want to do something, then they should take care of those old veterans out there. And some of them are starting to do it. J.R. Richards. There was a guy that was homeless.
Oh, yeah.
And they did something for him. Walter Payton, not that he did anything wrong, but he battled with cancer, I think.
Yeah, he had liver cancer. Unfortunately, he passed away before he could get a transplant.
But he knew how. Some of those guys knew how to save their money. Some of those other guys got cheated out of their money, or they blew their money. And instead of them being, let's say, them having a pension plan for football, the football players having a pension plan, let's say, they don't have that because they get so much money in bulk that and some people feel, well, you know what, you get this much money, you should know how to deal with your money. And there are some people that are very vicious out there. They will cheat you out of your money and so on. Or if they invest in businesses that go under.
Yep. There was even a 30 for 30 story about that on ESPN. It was called Broke.
Exactly. And if the NFL and all them other major teams and sports that are out there, they should do something about it. And I think the football union is trying to do something. Well, the basketball union is actually trying to do that.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to bring the older players back, teach the young guys a little bit or something, get them money. Because I remember Jim Cornette talking about, I forgot, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing blank on this.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. He's been clamoring for that for a long time. He's
been clamoring for the union because what he's saying is, and Jesse Ventura too, because he's saying that the WWE is saying that these are independent contractors.
They're not independent
contractors.
contractors.
Be a union. But how could they be independent contractors if they're not allowed to go to TNA to fight? They're specifically WWE brand.
Or even so much as do an interview.
Exactly. So if that's the case, how are you an independent contractor? No, that's not true. You don't have them as but the wrestlers do not want to get together because they don't want to miss out on the big money. That's the problem. And I understand what Ryback was saying and some of those other people were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a top draw, like, let's say, let's go back, Ric Flair.
Yep.
Everybody knows Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say it's me fighting him, right?
Yep.
Now, do you think I should get the same pay as him? No. He's Ric Flair. He's the champion. He's the one that's bringing in the money. How do I, who's, let's say, a mid-card or a builder, get the same amount of money as the top draw? No, that doesn't make sense. That's what Ryback is saying, that if I'm losing to this guy, if I'm losing to this guy and I'm in the same draw as him, then I should get almost just as much as him. That part I understand a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're telling me that I should get the same amount of money, if they're wanting to see him and not the other guy, but if you want to see both guys go at it, then maybe you should get the same pay. But on the WWE, they claim, to my understanding, is that they're independent contractors, but how could they be independent contractors if they can't go anywhere else? They can't fight in New Japan. Not the way Impact is letting people go, let's say, to Mexico. I forgot, AAA.
Mm-hmm.
They go to AAA. They go everywhere else. They're independent. They're legitimate independent contractors. Now they'll sign them. They'll sign them to fight for them, and then they can go if they have days open. They can go somewhere else. Yeah. But I feel bad for them because when it comes to income tax time, and if you're not top draw and you're not making that much money, you got to hold all your receipts and all that. Some wrestlers do not get paid very well.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be a really big name.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim Cornette was saying about a particular promoter. He used to get the older wrestlers, let's say wrestlers from the 50s.
Right.
50s or 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And he's retired. He used to keep him on as an announcer, as a referee, working in the office, just to give him a paycheck. Because those guys were never able to make the amount of money that you make now.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So maybe there should be some type of situation where you give back to these older players. You give back to the people that are in the hospitals because of what their concussions are. I think that's what's happening now, I think, in basketball and in football.
Right.
I'm not sure if legit, but I know, like I said, there was one promoter out there that used to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I mean, you should, you know, for some of these guys that are in leagues, not independent contractors, but leagues,
mm-hmm.
They should do something. They should have some type of pension plan or something of that nature, so that in case, God forbid, the family needs it,
Yeah.
they have something to give back. Because some of these guys, like I mentioned before, J.R. Richards,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the program 30-30 broke.
Yep.
Michael Ray Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
Look at them guys. I mean, they were brought up. They got caught up in alcoholism, drugs, and so forth,
Yeah.
and buying big houses, getting screwed by their agents.
Yeah.
Look at Mike Tyson. That's the really perfect example.
Oh, boy. I
Look
mean,
what
for all of
happened
the
to him,
issues that
left
he
and
had, everybody thought that he was just a wild child solely, but they overlooked the fact that he was a major victim of fraud at the hands of Don King.
You know, and if it wasn't for Customato, he really probably would have died.
Yeah.
But again, he didn't have the maturity. He had this somewhat of the street smart, but he didn't have the maturity to see what was going around him.
Exactly right.
Whether it was Don King, whether it was Robin Givens, whether he did or did not rape that person, that one young lady, even though they did find him guilty. And, you know, whatever the case may be, those are the things that you have to protect. Things like that. Even though he's making decent money now, but the point is, if you're not a name, Mike Tyson's a name. He's got his own little cartoon.
Yeah.
He's got his cartoon on the Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tyson's Mysteries.
Yeah.
And it's a 15-minute program, but it's the Cartoon Network. Yeah, he's making money there. He makes money in his appearances, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes money on HBO boxing,
Mm-hmm.
announcing, even though he's got that little list, but he knows his boxing. That man knows his boxing. He knows the history.
Oh, yes. He's
Okay?
no
He's
dummy.
not a stupid man. He's not. He actually knows his thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, guys like that, those are the ones that should be protected, but have like a little pension. We're going to take this amount of money, we're going to put it away until you get older or something of that nature. That's it. That should be done everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're an independent contractor or not, that should be just set aside. And that's it. If you're making enough money to be able to do it. That's the thing. If you're not able to do it and you're living check for check, that's a whole different ballgame. Because right now, the way things are, you're automatically paying to get into the pension plan. Before, let's say in the 60s or in the 70s, you were actually able not to pay into the pension plan.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people out there now that they don't have pensions because they didn't sign up for the pension plan.
Yeah.
So that's my big gift to humanity right now, is that they should set enough money for the side to live out. Now, for us normal people, that check per check and the little spit money that we get when we reach 65 or 70 years old or 67 when we retire, the way the economy keeps on going up and up and up,
Mm-hmm.
that money, let's say $6,000 or $8,000 that is being taken out, that's not going to even last a month.
Oh, brother.
But okay, not to sound bleak and so forth, but it's the truth. That's life. You know, we live, we die, we move on. You know, and all we have is the memories of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back to everything, going back to football.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they should do something about that. But all in all, man, that was. I mean, remember when Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg?
Joe Theismann's leg. It was 33 years ago this month that LT ended Theismann's career. And what was the aftermath of that? Jay Schrader came off the bench and led the Redskins to a victory. And he was actually a pretty decent player for the Skins for a while. But then he suddenly lost his accuracy. He wound up getting himself traded to the Raiders, and he was never heard from again.
Yeah. But that was a violent shot, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't even show the broken leg. I mean, you see Lawrence Taylor, after the shot, bring his arms out, going, come on, get the medics.
Yeah, he felt awful about hurting him the way he did. I've never ever seen a player react that way after making a play against a quarterback.
I mean, the best movie out there that some people say, and some of the football players, North Dallas 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the football players actually go through.
Yeah.
The ice, the steroids, the putting, let's say, brass knuckles or something to when you hit the guy.
Right.
You know, make the cast harder, whatever, make the tape harder. You know, just like in boxing, the dirty little tricks, put something on your gloves to make them tear, won't be able to see.
Right.
You know, so, yeah, that I mean, but the dynasties back then, going back to that, the dynasties was Dallas,
mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Dan Marino, I mean, you always kick yourself in the head going, why didn't this guy win a championship? And he's in the Football Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
He's got one of the highest passing yards. He's one of the top 3 or top 5 quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, he is. In fact, he threw for over 61,000 yards for his career, which is spent entirely in Miami.
Exactly. And he was one of those guys that stayed true to his team. But that was another thing, too. A lot of players stood with their teams.
Yep.
Because they got paid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you something. Do you think they should have a salary cap at all?
Well, the NFL does have a salary cap.
No, do you think they should get rid of it?
Or do you think they should get rid of it? That's a great question, because the way things are working in the league right now, it's benefited a lot of the small market teams like the Colts and the Chiefs and the Bills, teams that you never thought would actually be contenders. They're turning into contenders now. The Chiefs have become, all of a sudden, a major contender. The Bills, the small market Bills, were a playoff team last year. The Colts won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning as their quarterback. But let me tell you, if there was no salary cap in the NFL 20 years ago, I think Peyton Manning would have played someplace else. And I also would tell you, maybe, just maybe, Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers would have found themselves on another team.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, I mean, I'm all for guys getting what they feel like they should get, but at the same time, the owners have to stop being so stupid and so ignorant when it comes to just shelling out money. They have to hire a real football-savvy staff, a GM, a president of football operations, an entire scouting department, just to make sure that they don't go overboard when it comes to salaries. So to answer your question, no, I don't think that they should get rid of the salary cap because it's working for the league. It's creating competitive balance. It's allowing for teams to compete. Not only that, but revenue sharing is working brilliantly for all of these teams around the league. Let me put it this way. 20 years ago, you would not have seen a team like, for example, the Cowboys lose all of their players to free agency. They would have kept everybody, and they probably would have contended for maybe a few more titles than just the 3 that they got in 4 years. Other than that, I think things are working really well the way they are.
And they're fighting to get more revenue. A lot of times they fight to get more revenue because just like in college, here's the guy that, let's say, is getting full scholarship. Now, a lot of those players aren't getting full scholarships.
Yeah.
They have to pay and so on. Or they're getting financial aid or not.
Or they have a partial scholarship.
Exactly. And a lot of those players are poor, but yet you see them have games come out on their blood, sweat, and tears. And these guys are living piss poor. And then if they get paid a little bit, let's say they get $100, they say, let's say they get a job, or somebody gives them, they get penalized.
Yep.
But yet, here are the schools making money off these guys. That's another thing, But all in all, things considered, do you think we'll have a dynasty that wins back to back to back?
In the NFL?
Like that again? Yeah.
Well, we kind of, sort of already have that with the Patriots because they were able to do that in 2003 and 2004. But ever since then, we've had a different champion each year. From 2005 on, we've had a different champion. The answer, yes, I do think we can get a repeat champion, but at the same time, the salary cap is really allowing for all of this parity to be taking place. So it could, teams would have to maneuver around the cap a lot in order to keep a lot of the core players that they've had just to try and compete again.
And we'll look at it in baseball, too, if you really think about it. The salary cap and they have something called the soft cap and the hard. Football has the hard cap.
Well, they have
Baseball
a luxury
has
tax.
The soft cap. They have the luxury tax, but they also have the soft cap as well, if I remember correctly. And the luxury tax, that money goes to the other poorer teams. Some of that money that they pay double or triple. The Yankees are going through that right now.
Yeah.
Brian Cashman, supposedly, that's why you see them with their big names now going after Manny Machado, Bruce Harper.
You mean Bryce Harper?
Bryce Harper, trying to get one of the top prospects or one of the top pitchers, I should say.
It's funny you mention that because the Yankees actually just completed a deal a few minutes ago for a pitcher.
And talking about that, I don't know. Well, tell the people, just in case they don't know.
Well, the Yankees just cut a deal for James Paxton of the Mariners. And in exchange, the Yankees are giving up their top prospect, Justice Sheffield, who was their left-handed pitching stud. And a guy who made a few appearances for the Yankees this season, including playoffs, looked a little shaky at times, but we could just see that the potential was really there. But now he's going to finally get his chance to be a starting pitcher in Seattle. So now let's see what James Paxton can do in pinstripes. Just to give you an idea about James Paxton's numbers, for the record, he's a 30-year-old Canadian-born pitcher. And the last 2 seasons, he's won 23 games. He had 12 wins in 2017, 11 wins in 2018. He's basically more of a control pitcher. Although a couple of years ago, actually just last year, he struck out 208 batters. And the year before that, he had 156, and the year before that, he had 117.
How old is he? Is he lefty or righty?
He's a left-handed pitcher, and he just turned 30 years old a week and a half ago.
Okay, you're trading a 21-year-old who's got most of the potential, because when he came in the beginning, when they first started practicing, he actually did very well. They actually thought that he was going to make the team. And he didn't make the team because they said, oh, let him stay in AAA.
Yeah.
They did bring him up in spurts, but I think they should either left him down there or left him up here. Not bring him up and down like an elevator.
This is true, but at the same time, the Yankees have made it clear they're trying to win next year, and I'm not really sure how much longer they would have waited for Sheffield to try and make an impact. All the more reason why they made the Paxton deal. Quite frankly, it's a good deal for them. They get a lefty starter who was a high strikeout pitcher this past season. Now it's just a matter of seeing whether he can duplicate or even better those numbers in a much bigger market next year. And the Yankees are not done yet, because it looks like they want to make a deal for another pitcher.
And they may get rid of that other prospect, the shortstop.
Which one?
The guy we were talking about, the one that replaced Didi Gregorius.
Are you talking about, you're not talking about Adeiny Echeverria, right? Or Gleyber Torres?
Gleyber Torres.
They
were talking about selling him off to get a top prospect or get a top pitcher. And
I don't know,
because they're thinking that if they get Manny Machado, right, and you're getting back Didi Gregorius, where are you going to put the kid?
Yeah, but Gregorius is going to take a long time to heal. I mean, maybe it suits them best to keep Torres and just have Adeiny Echeverria be the everyday shortstop.
He'll be back within the year.
Unless they want to make Machado the shortstop, and they keep Torres, and they have maybe Machado and Torres and Miguel Andujar from second to third. Not only that, but Gregorius is going to be a free agent next year. So there's a strong possibility they may not want to commit to him long term. Which would be really tough, because Gregorius has been rock solid for them as their shortstop. And he's developed himself into being a power hitting shortstop each of the last 2 years.
Well, if you do, let's say you sign Manny Machado, and you get Didi Gregorius back, and you sign him for long term, right? Let's say 5 years. The guy's still a young guy. Machado's what, 30?
Machado's 26 years old.
26 years old. He's kind of lazy, according to what he said.
Oh, brother. He really embarrassed himself during these playoffs, just jogging to the bases on ground balls. I mean, he really cost himself a lot of points in the eyes of some scouts and some general managers around the league.
But here's the thing. He's a great player.
He's a great player, but if he's going to loaf around the bases every now and then, that's not going to sit well with the manager. That's going to create some disciplinary problems.
That's going to create a big rift, because the manager, for some of these guys, they're not Billy Martin, that they're willing to take Reggie Jackson, a superstar, and bench him. Okay? If the superstar, it's not as if we're in them good olden days where the manager and the GM had a little bit more power, and the players were a little dumber, or they couldn't do much about it because they didn't have no wiggle room.
Yeah.
Now the player has more of a say-so. Look at LeBron, for God's sake. all right, he can get you hired and he can get you fired.
Yeah.
All right.
More along the lines of fired than hired.
Exactly. But but they got to hire someone that he likes as well.
Yeah.
That he can get along with. Because if he doesn't get along with, then you have a player who's a great talent that's going to be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. So they're saying, because I was hearing on WFAN and ESPN and reading up on this, and they're saying that the Yankee organization, the GM and Hal Steinbrenner, the owners, want to talk to him. And they want, because he did do an interview talking about laziness and all that other stuff. They want to interview him about that and talk to him about what did he mean by all this. So,
I think it's pretty self-explanatory from watching him on the bases.
Again, if you get him, you're getting a great player. You just have to put up with his nonsense. Now, maybe he's immature. Maybe, because remember, he's a star. He knows he can do it at any given time. He can turn the ignition and go when he feels like it.
At the same time, though, there comes a time for accountability. And he really needs to shape up. Because if he pulled that in pinstripes during a game, especially in a big, big game, the fans and the media will never let him hear the end of it.
Well, the fans and the media, okay, the fans will not let him do nothing. And the media will get on his case. And he still gets paid. And you still sign him for a long-term contract. And he's still a great player.
He's still a great player, but he can't be getting away with all of those antics.
Unless they get him and he realizes what's going on. Then you got it. If this is all true, let's go put that into account. And let's go by the sign that he's still immature. Because at 26, you could still be immature. Because remember, he started young. Remember something, that when you're young and you're making all that money, that can cause a lot of things, because things are made easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
Things are easy. You get free food. You get free this. You get free that. You get discounts on things that normal people would do. You know? So on that point, you got to realize that when you hit your 30s, you're a little wiser now, the majority of the time. But, you know, you're 26 years old, you're making a lot of money, they let you fly all the time because you're a great player. You know, maybe, I'll do it. Oh, no, maybe not. I don't feel like it. Oh, the hell with it. I'll just play when I feel like playing because I'm still getting paid.
Yep.
And that would be a very dangerous lineup with Machado and Gregorius in there and everybody else in there.
Again, that's assuming that Gregorius even returns to the field next season, because he's coming off a Tommy John surgery.
Well, pitchers have returned from Tommy John surgery.
They have, but these surgeries are a long rehab process. This could take 6 months up to a year for him to return.
But he's a young guy. That's another thing that you got to take into account. He's a young guy, and two, he's not a pitcher. For a pitcher, it's worse. For a pitcher, it's worse because you're throwing. You're throwing every time. When you're a shortstop, you're not throwing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing. You're not a pitcher. You're throwing all the time. You're throwing for 9 innings straight, and you're throwing for what, 200? Well, how things are going, 76.
Right.
Your pitch count is 76 to 100 tops.
Mm-hmm.
Or your 150. Barely you see a pitcher go 150 to 200. But I'm just saying, in general, you have to wait and see, because if he does, let's say he does come back, where are you going to put him if you got Machado? Is he willing to go to third? Is Machado willing to go to third if Didi Gregorius comes back and plays shortstop? Because if A-Rod did it, they figured if A-Rod did it, well, why can't you? He was willing to do it. But again, that's if for what's in wishes. A lot of people do want him.
There are people that want him, but they got to set this kid straight.
They don't want the luggage. They don't want the stupidity that goes behind it. But a lot of teams want him, and they're willing to pay for it. You look at the Dodgers. They're willing to pay. If he said to now, I want to stick with the Dodgers, you don't think they'd be willing to pay for it? Name one team, even though they know what they know now. Name one team that wouldn't take them.
Name one team that would not take him?
Yeah, name one team that would not take him.
If they wanted to, I can tell you right now, any contender would be lining up to offer him a blank check, and
exactly.
So he can write down what he wants.
Exactly. Even with his antics, even with his laziness, they are still willing to pay for his greatness.
They still have to set him straight, though. They still have to. They still have to set him straight.
I mean, it all depends.
Simple.
Like I said,
Tell him go out there and hustle and don't loaf around the bases.
Again, what good is it to tell someone, a guy to tell him to hustle, where he's already making a boatload of money? If you already signed him on the contract and that's guaranteed money, then you know what?
Because if he doesn't, he casts a very dark cloud over himself in the eyes of teammates, coaches, the manager, fans, and media.
Do you really think some of them care?
Yeah.
Think they care?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of teammates that care about guys who hustle or don't hustle. I mean, if they're busting it every single time, they're endearing themselves to everybody. But if they're like Ricky Henderson, who was notorious for loafing around the bases, that's only going to create a lot more friction between that player, certain teammates, and the manager.
Well, again,
and I'll have you know, Ricky Henderson got dumped by the Mets one year because he failed to run out a base hit that should have been a triple. Instead, he turned it into a single because he thought it was a home run. You just don't do that.
But yet, there are teams willing to sign you. That's the thing. Because, again, this is a guy that you're going to sign, let's say, 8 years. This is a guy that's going to sign for 8 years. The majority of that is guaranteed. And with other special things that they give him, like if you hit a certain amount of home runs, if you appear in a certain amount of games. I mean, if you look at it, them contracts are double and triple bigger than the Bible.
If anything, the Yankees really should be careful about what they offer this kid, because remember the A-Rod deal, 10 years for all that money.
If you really wanted to make a statement, and since you can't do this legally, like the way they're doing with Kaepernick, what they're doing is atrocious. But if they really wanted to do it, they should all collude a little bit and go, we're not going to hire you, or this is the only amount of money that we're going to give you, and that's it. You know, this is it, and lowball them. And then after that, let him learn his lesson, come back, and go, okay. Or do it yearly. Do yearly contracts. Do 3-year contracts. Don't do 10 years.
I would think that 5 years would be more than reasonable enough. It's not going to happen, but I would think that it would be more than reasonable to offer somebody a 5-year deal. I mean, look at what's happening in the NBA. There are players that are getting 5-year deals, but they're getting $30 to $40 million annually.
Well, Albert Pujols has a 10-year contract.
And that was the Anaheim Angels' biggest mistake. Because not only has he not led them to a championship, he's had problems with bad legs. And even though his production has been good, it hasn't been great.
But you knew when you got him in the beginning to take you to the hump, to take you over the hump. Now, he didn't get you over the hump, but he got you damn well close. And he
didn't win that championship for them, though.
When you sign a player, let's say for 10 years, you're expecting that the first 4 years to 5 years that you'll make it, and then the rest of the years, you know what you're getting. You better get some better players around this guy. That's what you're doing for if you get a guy for 10 years, depending upon what age as well. And same as pitchers, you know. But again, we've just talked and babbled like we haven't really talked anything about sports much.
Well, we talked football and baseball.
Yeah, and I tell you, we wrestling. I just recently saw the Survivor Series between Survivor Series and NXT.
Yep.
Give the golden star to NXT for putting on a grand performance.
Once again.
Now, is it because their show, I think, was a 1-hour show, that they can get away with more? Or, you know, because Raw was, 4 hours? Survivor Series was 4 hours, the kickoff and all that. And secondly, you know, SmackDown lost 6 times. They were 0 for 6.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing was that the preliminaries, which the championship, they actually won the tag team. The Usos won.
Yeah.
So they're 6-1.
Mm-hmm.
They should be counting 6-1, but since it was the kickoff, they're saying now that they're 6-0.
Yeah.
They're 0-6, but no, they didn't. So give it to NXT once again. Tommaso Ciampa, Velveteen Dream, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano, the Blazer. Give it to all them for putting one of the best performances I've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to NXT, which pushes a very damn good product, even though it's an hour long.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were some spots, Charlotte Flair and what's her face? I even forgot her name now.
It's Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey.
And Flair wound up getting disqualified.
Yeah, but they're saying that she's turning heel. Everybody's turning heel. Dean Ambrose is turning heel. Charlotte Flair's turning heel.
Becky Lynch just turned heel, too.
But they're saying that she's turning heel, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But and Nia Jax destroying her. Now they're giving her the smash mouth face person, the woman that could injure everybody. They're trying to soak that up the way Sami Callihan made the mistake on Eddie Edwards' face that almost popped his eyeball out.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, Hector, so we're going to have to bid you adieu.
All right. Well, have a nice Thanksgiving, everyone, and stay safe and be warm.
For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Good night.
Gobble, gobble.